Hey y'all, and welcome back to Flick Connection, where in less time than you normally spend looking for something to watch every night, I'm going to tell you about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in July 2024. And it's a doozy of a month. They're adding a lot of stuff, including a bunch of old classics you've likely seen and might be interested in rewatching, as well as a whole bunch of new stuff and a handful of seasons that are coming to a close. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video, but before talking about them, let's talk about all the stuff they're adding on the first. Movies like The Karate Kid. Yeah, the original from the 80s. Far and away the best one, and it's a great month for them to add it because later in July, they're going to be starting the final season of Cobra Kai. One that has never been on Netflix to my knowledge is Warcraft. Believe it or not, this is a movie I actually haven't seen. But my understanding is fans of the game feel like the movie didn't deliver, whereas other people feel like it's a pretty decent fantasy action-adventure movie. So I'll definitely be giving it a shot now that it's on Netflix.
I haven't cried like that since Titanic.
They're also bringing back Zombieland, a highly rewatchable movie, and it's the original, not Double Tap. I didn't really enjoy the sequel at all. I felt like it squandered a lot of the jokes and the potential that the original set up. As it stands, though, Zombieland is just an excellent horror comedy. But speaking of horror, we're still a ways out from Halloween, obviously, but we've got a slew of horror movies getting added this month, including one that inspired me personally, American Psycho. I should clarify, the movie inspired me to get in good shape. It didn't really inspire me to do anything else. A wild one to be sure, but it is held up as a cult classic because it's got so many just amazing standalone scenes in it. Easily one of the weirdest, wildest movies Christian Bale has ever done.
I have to kill a lot of people!
But still in the horror genre, they're also adding Life, which is a pretty cool movie with a really big cast. It tries to go for like a Alien type thing, and you're just not going to top Alien in terms of space horror. But if you can watch Life without constantly comparing it to Alien, then I think you can actually have a lot of fun with it. It's pretty intense and exciting, and they're also going to be adding the Conjuring spin-off with a creepy doll titled Annabelle, as well as the Conjuring spin-off with a creepy nun titled The Nun. And believe it or not, I actually think Jigsaw is a pretty decent reboot of the Saw series. Saw is a series of horror movies I lost interest in as they went along, but this reboot titled Jigsaw is actually directed by the Spierig brothers. They've done a handful of movies I've really enjoyed. If you're like me and you lost interest in the Saw movies, Jigsaw might rekindle it. For some more classics, they're adding the entire Back to the Future trilogy, which is a cool ad for Netflix, but those 3 movies were available for free on YouTube with ad breaks, yes, but they're likely going to remove them on July 1st, but they're available there right now at the time of me making this video. And then they're also adding the original Spider-Man trilogy, the one directed by Sam Raimi. These movies hold up way better than you would expect, or at least the first 2 do. Spider-Man 3 is, I don't know, it just tonally doesn't fit with the other 2, but these first 2 feel quite a bit different than the current Marvel movies, and don't get me wrong, I like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies quite a lot, actually, but these Sam Raimi originals, they've got kind of a more mature tone than most of the Marvel movies do, and I still enjoy them for that. Speaking of mature, they're adding the Adam Sandler classic, Big Daddy.
And we're both losing weight. Good job.
For another couple of irreverent comedies, they're going to be adding Easy A, starring Emma Stone. This is kind of like a high school version of The Scarlet Letter. She begins to let people assume that she's getting good grades by giving out sexual favors, even though she definitely is not. It's interesting, it's funny, but definitely geared at a younger audience. And then one that's not geared at a younger audience is Magic Mike XXL. Believe it or not, I actually think the first Magic Mike movie is an excellent Steven Soderbergh film. There's a lot of great characters in it, including the one from Matthew McConaughey, and then you get this sequel that's just kind of a silly comedy, and again, tonally doesn't fit with the first. I mean, I guess if all you're interested in is watching grown men take their clothes off, you can do that here on YouTube. Kidding. Just watch Magic Mike.
What a jip.
And then for some throwback television, they're adding Suits Season 9. And for some real throwback television, Lost, the entire series. Now, if you are feeling particularly lost, then listen up. I'd love to tell you about today's sponsor before telling you about all the new stuff coming to Netflix in July, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy affordable and accessible because a good therapist can get pricey, but it can also be very hard to find depending on where you live. And it's super simple to get started. Just by answering a few basic questions, BetterHelp is going to be able to pair you up with a perfect therapist for you within about 48 hours. And as someone who has benefited greatly from therapy, I can tell you, I personally did it remotely just like you would with BetterHelp. And I feel like I'm happier, healthier, I feel like I'm a better husband and a better father as a result of just talking to a qualified person. And not only is BetterHelp convenient and comfortable, but if you don't like the therapist that they paired you with, you can switch for free and you don't have to worry about insurance or who's in your network or any of that junk. It's super easy to get started and set up with your therapist. To do so, just go to the link in the video description or type in betterhelp.com/flickconnection and you're gonna save 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So if you feel like something's getting in the way of your happiness or preventing you from reaching your goals, definitely consider following the link in the description to get that discount, but also to put you on a road to a better you. Speaking of great stuff though, let's talk about all the new stuff Netflix is adding in July.
You know, this is very embarrassing.
You know, part of me rather get locked up than get put in this little Fisher-Price looking squad car.
On the 3rd, they're adding the biggest project of the month, or at least the one they seem to be the most proud of, Beverly Hills Cop 4. That's right, Eddie Murphy is reprising his role as Alex Foley in the 4th installment of Beverly Hills Cop. Now, I am actually not a big fan of Beverly Hills Cop. I don't think they're that good. I enjoy other Eddie Murphy movies a lot more. I actually dig the theme music more than I do the actual movie, but at the same time, Eddie Murphy's other Netflix movie, Dolomite Is My Name, is probably my favorite Netflix original comedy they've ever created. If not, it's definitely up there. So there's actually a fair amount of potential with this Beverly Hills Cop movie, but at the same time, I'm not really expecting much because I didn't get a whole lot out of those original Beverly Hills Cop movies for some reason. Also on July 3rd, they're adding The Man with 1,000 Kids. No, not a documentary on Wilt Chamberlain, actually. It's about a man who potentially really did father over 1,000 children, and my guess is it's not a heartwarming story. On the 5th, they're adding the big HBO Scientology documentary titled Going Clear. There's been quite a few documentaries on Scientology over the years, but Going Clear is easily one of the best. Not only does it highlight a lot of the wacky stuff with Scientology, but it goes into detail with a lot of the darker elements of that following. I hesitate to call it a religion, even though the government doesn't. On the same day, they're adding a new Japanese animated movie titled The Imaginary. This is actually created by some of the same people from Studio Ghibli, who has made some of the most amazing Japanese animated movies of all time. So it'll be interesting to see if Netflix can successfully bring some of these creators into the fold and have them create movies that are just as good right here on the platform. On July 10th, they add Receiver. This is a follow-up to the Quarterback documentary they released just a couple of months ago. And then another sports documentary is titled Tickled. Believe it or not, I've actually seen this documentary, and it's a weird one. It's about some men, or let's say young men, who are tricked into getting tickled in a hotel room. The manner in which they are tricked is actually not that unbelievable. But as you can imagine, people that are tricking you into getting tickled in a hotel room, they're up to some nasty business, and this actually ends up being a pretty wild scam. Not interesting enough for me to rewatch this doc, but if I piqued your interest at all, put it on. It's a trip. Vikings Valhalla returns for its final season. If you didn't know, Netflix has a spin-off of the hit History Channel series titled Vikings, this being the 3rd and final season. July 12th brings a new adult animation series titled Exploding Kittens.
Who? Me? Beelzebub? Lady of Darkness, whose mission on Earth is to torture you?
Yes, this is based on the board game, or I guess card game. There's not really a board in Exploding Kittens. Doesn't matter. The show is animated. It's going to have some crude humor in it. It's actually not rated mature. It's rated 14 and up, so probably not going to be crude enough for my taste. And then on the 15th, Bone Tomahawk returns to Netflix. It was on there for the longest and has been gone for even longer. This is a Western from the same director as Brawl in Cell Block 99 and Dragged Across Concrete, and it's probably his most popular film. In this movie, you get a fantastic Western led off by Kurt Russell and followed up with an amazing cast. And this movie is actually not too disturbing until you get towards the end, and then it really goes for it. Now, I'm not going to try to discourage people from watching this movie, but I'm warning you that this goes into extremely graphic territory, yet it's for relatively short amounts of time. But for the most part, you get a pretty killer Western out of this thing that definitely has more teeth than Westerns used to. On the 16th, they're adding some sexy movies, including 50 Shades 2 and 3. They added the first one last month. These two will likely make it into the top 10, but for my money, I'd much rather watch The Boy Next Door with Jennifer Lopez. In this movie, she plays an older woman who begins to have an affair with the younger man next door. I'm not recommending this one, I've never seen it, but definitely sounds like my thing more than 50 Shades, or at least sounds like it would have been my thing when I was a younger man. If you like getting unlimited movie recommendations, definitely consider clicking that subscribe button. I put out 1 or 2 videos like this every single week to make sure you never run out of good movies to watch. And then on the July 18th, Cobra Kai returns for Season 6, Part 1. Part 2 begins in November with a finale in 2025. So, if you've been following the saga since it began right here on YouTube, believe it or not, this was a YouTube original before moving to Netflix, it's finally coming to a close. And next up, we've got a brand new action-adventure movie that was in theaters this year, and I know a lot of you missed it because it's like they forgot to market it. It seems to be the case with a lot of movies these days. I don't know what's going on with Hollywood. It's like they're literally forgetting to tell us about their movies. The Land of Bad is a special forces flick about some guys trapped behind enemy lines. Russell Crowe plays the commander of this mission, but you've got Liam Hemsworth really as the lead. So if you're not excited about him portraying Geralt in the ongoing Witcher series here on Netflix, check him out in this movie. He's done cooler flicks, but if you're worried he's not badass enough, this movie might change your mind. On the 19th, they're bringing Sweet Home back for Season 3. This is a hit South Korean action horror series about a bunch of wild monsters. Honestly, if this looks like your kind of thing, check out Season 1, Episode 1. It'll get its hooks into you, and if it doesn't, then it's probably not for you, but if it does, congrats, you've got 3 seasons now of an incredible action horror series to catch up on. And then the only rom-com I'm mentioning this month is titled Find Me Falling, and the only reason I'm mentioning it is because it stars Harry Connick Jr. I love Harry Connick Jr., haven't seen him in anything in years. Apparently he's playing a sort of washed-up rock star in this rom-com, and him being in it is enough to get me to at least check it out.
Are they gonna stop bringing us food? No.
And then another love story is actually titled Skywalker's A Love Story. This is about a couple who do these epic climbs together, and I believe the documentary revolves around them climbing a skyscraper. So it sounds like a doc that has a love story at its core, but also has a lot in common with Man on Wire and Free Solo. On the 24th, they're adding Dirty Pop. This is a crime documentary about boy bands, or more specifically, Lou Pearlman, who was the producer behind the Backstreet Boys and U.N.C.L.E, and apparently was also behind one of the world's largest Ponzi schemes. So, sounds like an incredible crime documentary that revolves around some of your favorite boy bands. The Decameron is an interesting project. It's a new series that takes place during the 14th century, during the Black Plague, and apparently analyzes like class differences and things of that nature, but the trailer actually looks pretty wild, and there are some comedy actors involved. So this at least looks like something that will have a unique flavor on Netflix, whether it's one you like the taste of or not. Just last month, Guy Ritchie released his latest movie, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and while I was a bit disappointed with that flick, it reminded me quite a bit of another movie of his, The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Nicely done.
Now, both films star Henry Cavill, and while his character was pretty wild in Ungentlemanly Warfare, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is just an excellent 1960s spy movie. There are a bunch of fantastic action sequences in this movie, but it also has that 1960s spy flavor. In fact, it's oozing it. It's all over the place in this movie, and it's just a lot of fun. I've always thought Guy Ritchie movies were fun, but this one has more fun and less grit than his movies typically do, making it pretty rewatchable in my opinion. By the way, clicking anything like the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all of that stuff lets the YouTube algorithm know that you like this content, would like to see more things like it again in the future, and that they should recommend it to other folks just like you, which is the best way to help me grow this channel. On the 29th, they're adding kind of an old show, Prison Break, the entire series. This was a hit on Fox like 20 years ago. I'm kind of baffled as to why they're bringing it back. There's so much content right now. I don't know why you would revisit a show like this, but if you really loved it and want to spend your time doing that, they're adding it here at the end of the month, along with Unsolved Mysteries Season 4. But here is everything leaving Netflix in the month of July. If you're new to the channel, welcome, but the date listed is the date it's gone, which means you need to watch it prior to the date I'm showing you here. Just pause it if you need more time to look at these titles, but don't forget to check out that BetterHelp link down in the description, or just go to betterhelp.com/flickconnection if you need to talk to somebody. It really can be a big help, but I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special Netflix episode, and you will see me on the next one.